Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here this morning. So as we go through, I just wanted to remind everybody as we go through each topic, please just hold your questions until we get through those topics. And then I'll just ask people to post in the chat box. And then I'll either have Colleen or Kristen read them out. But that way it's a little bit more organized. A lot of times when we go through what we're trying to go through, your question gets answered before you even need to type it. So I'm going to start recording here. All right, and welcome. November 17th, this is our November Principals Coffee. And this is one where usually when we're in person, you really feel that there's a lot of buildup towards Thanksgiving. And so we would normally have it, we used to have it during the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and then we noticed that nobody would come. So we moved it to the week before in the hopes that we would get larger attendance. And it certainly looks like the 29 of you who've made it here today, that's going to increase our numbers. So there are some good things that come out of these virtual meetings. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you to Mia for being here, and also to Colleen and Kristen, and I'm sure that at some point, Dr. Lamia will be jumping on to say hello as well. So I just wanted to start the meeting going over our agenda. We have a very good agenda here. It's varied, it's all over the place, but it's really important that we get a lot of this information out. So we're going to just start by welcoming our newest faculty member, and that's Mr. Kyle Banks. Mr. Kyle Banks is our new choir director, and he is replacing Jonah Piali. And he will be teaching our choir. He's also teaching studio music production and composition, music theory, and then AP music theory. He'll also have a number of extracurricular activities that he will be involved with, and we're very excited to have him here. He brings a lot of energy to the building, and we were really lucky to get him, especially at a time when, you know, teachers are pretty much set for the year. So we welcome him and look to see him become a great part of our community. So welcome, Mr. Kyle Banks. All right, so we're also going to be hearing from Annie Kelly, who is our social worker. Annie and I have worked together, I think it's probably almost 10 years now, Annie. But before becoming the social worker, she was our student assistance counselor for 8 years or so. And in that capacity, she really got to know the needs of the students. She worked with a lot of our families when students were going through really, really difficult times. So in that role, she was primarily focused on drug and alcohol abuse and the possible abuse of that. And she was really instrumental in helping us get everybody the information they needed when vaping started to become really prevalent. And she always is somebody who is extremely confidential. She's a complete professional, and I'm going to let her explain to you the shifting role that she has as she becomes a social worker. We're also going to discuss the grading as it relates to the first quarter. Grades were posted yesterday afternoon, and we were able to unpack them and to look at some longitudinal data of the other first quarters going back for the previous 4 years. And since we're doing so many different things this year, and it's all very brand new for us, we wanted to make sure that our grading at least was aligned with our practices in the past. I'm going to explain our process for parent-teacher conferences and how that is changing slightly this year. I'm going to discuss the holiday quarantine guidance, and then just go over some upcoming events and important dates. So that's where we are right now. I will hand it over to Annie Kelly. And Annie, if you want to share your screen, you can certainly do that. I don't know if you have anything to any slides, but if you wanted to, you could send them to me and I can post them as well. So Annie, take it away. It's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not going to share my screen. I don't have slides. I'm just planning to speak. So I just want to echo what Chris already said. We've been working together for 10 years now. 8 of those years, I was the student assistance counselor. So I may know some of you already. I was out of the building for a year, and now I'm back in this new role as school social worker for the high school. This is a new position for the high school, and I'm the first one in it. And for me, that's just an honor. Really excited about it. I was thrilled to get back to work at this summer, actually starting in July, when us mental health professionals were getting on the phone and trying to figure out how to plan for the year. Coming back in and being in a new role, working for the faculty, working for the district is a big responsibility. And in this pandemic, it's even more of a challenge. But for me, I truly see it as a silver lining and a way to focus the work around what the community needs right now. That's what a social worker always does. We jump in a crisis and we think about who needs our help. That's really the larger community, parents, faculty and staff, students, families, pretty much everyone. So I've sort of had my hand in a lot of things right now, but also going back to the basics of social work and my early training, thinking about how to target the needs of those that are most struggling. So I do a lot of consulting with the administration, with guidance, with teachers and staff, and with parents to try to figure out who needs some outreach, who needs some counseling and support to get through this time. Also building out my program, making sure that everyone's aware of who I am, how they can find me. So you can see some information that I just put out under the guidance newsletter called the Advisor Newsletter, and that was put out about 2 weeks ago. And there's a lot of information about what school social workers do and what I'm going to be focusing on this year. One of my big initiatives right now is to connect with families that are fully remote, families that have chosen to keep their children home for a variety of reasons, and also families who find themselves on temporary remote. I think it's so important to create that bridge between school and home, as so much just can get lost, especially in the way of students' social and emotional needs. So I am connecting with parents on Google Meet calls right now and trying to help problem solve and make connections in any way that I can. So I welcome any form of connection to me. You're always welcome to email me, to call me. My information is in Chris's slides. It's also under guidance on the school website. You can find my information in the school newsletter. I am available for individual counseling with your children in person in a socially distanced manner, or over Google Meet if they're remote. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here for you, and please feel free to ask me any questions or to follow up after the meeting.
Thank you very much, Annie. Now, Annie, your training has gone back. Can you just give a little bit of a background about some of your previous work? I think maybe that would help people understand the lens that you come into this with.
Sure. So I got my master's in social work from NYU back in 2004, and I really focused on the clinical aspect of the work, meaning counseling. And one of my first jobs, which I just am so thankful for, even though it was very intense, was in a psychiatric unit in a hospital in Brooklyn. And from then I went on to a counseling center in the city where I worked with, children, adults, and families. From there, after school program in the Bronx, where I built out a social work program. And then I've been in this building for 8 years. So I really draw from all of it pretty much on a daily basis. And I think having my first role being a psychiatric setting has shown me the huge spectrum of mental health. And so I kind of have an understanding of where things fit within that. And that always seems to serve as my guide. And I love working with teenagers. I think they have that maturity and that ability to have some self-awareness and to advocate for themselves, but also still needing that family support and help. So I just find that to be that sweet spot. I love working with that age group. But please feel free. You can ask me questions at any time. I'm always available.
Well, thank you very much, Annie. I don't know that if we had anybody post any questions, but I know you can be reached if you want to email ankelly@byramhills.org. I'm going to post up her contact information here. All right. Once again, thank you, Annie, and we look forward to seeing you grow into that role. And we once again want to really thank the district, the Board of Education, for supporting this critical need here at Byram Hills High School. All right, so I wanted to transition again to speak about grading. So the first quarter, they went out yesterday. So if you haven't already received that blast, you know that the report cards are posted on the portal. They were put there last night. Not like the old days where you could hide your report card from your parents for a couple days, but they are all out there. They are all posted. Now, the first quarter is always a little bit interesting because we do have a number of different things that allow our teachers to have a little bit more time to make sure that the grades are right. This year, although the quarter ended on November 6th, we had until yesterday to update grades. So there was really 2 weekends and a whole week in between when students could work with teachers to get in some of those late assignments. Even so, the first quarter, we generally see a lot of grade change forms coming in for the next few weeks. We do still have some students who have incomplete grades, and it's required that they make those up within 2 weeks. So although we have the data, we feel really good about it. I wouldn't say that it's something that we will not go back and revisit. We will definitely revisit this as we go. So looking back at the past 3 years, so if we looked at the seniors when they were all the way back to their freshman year, the juniors all the way back, sophomores back to last year, and now the freshmen. When we look at the grades over the course of that time, I can tell you that this first quarter really outweighs all the others in terms of students receiving A+ by a large amount. We see a huge increase in the A+. Now, I want to make sure that there's a distinction between the grading and the learning, right? The grading is an assessment of the learning process, the protocols that the teachers have in place. Now, that doesn't indicate that our kids are somehow coming in that much brighter because they're getting that many A+. It just means that the way that we are assessing is changing, and this is so new that you should see that as evidence that our teachers are really being flexible and open with students as they go through this whole new process of the hybrid learning model. It should also be taken as students being able to do a lot of things on their own and really being self-advocating. And you can see that translates to those students who really have high executive functioning skills. You can see that they are the ones that are reaping benefits and getting those higher grades. We do also want to acknowledge that there are a lot more project-based, performance-based, and authentic assessments that are being done by our teachers. And due to that, we see a lot of the students being able to bring in a lot more of their own personalities into these assessments. It was really evident when we had to go remote for from October 27th until last Thursday that those traditional types of assessments, those are really difficult to do in this current environment. And so I think our teachers have done a really good job trying to modify the way that they're assessing students. And I think you see that in the grades that we have seen over the course of this quarter. Academic integrity is always something that we are concerned with, especially since we are so new with this model, the hybrid learning model. Now, I know a lot of teachers felt that it was necessary for them to still give traditional assessments. And for those teachers that had cohorts where they had no remote students, they were able to do it a little bit. But what we've seen is a little bit of an uptick in students going temporary remote. They might be on quarantine or travel quarantine, where it's really almost impossible for any teacher to not have a kid who's fully remote. And what that means is that those teachers can't depend on giving traditional assessments in person to all of their students. So those are things that our teachers are working on. And there's an old saying, old enough that the internet, since the internet has come out, that any assessment that is nullified by a student's access to the internet is not really a good assessment. Well, that still really holds true. And I think we're seeing that more and more now. And what that means is that the traditional, the tests that we took back in the day with the Scantrons, those are really becoming a thing of the past. Those multiple choice, fill in the blanks, they're not something that we can really value in this system. And our teachers are working really hard to try to make sure that the learning is reflected in the types of assessments that they are giving. Like I said, the academic integrity, we saw it going all the way back to last year. We were only giving feedback and not giving grades because of that reason. And we wanted to make sure that all of the students were on the same equal playing ground as possible. Now, when we are in an environment where grades are the capital, they are the things that are used to gain entry into a lot of these other areas where they believe it's connected to success. We go back to our challenge success data, and one of the root issues of our stress and anxiety here is a belief that these things that they're doing that are connected to grades are connected to their acceptances to colleges. They see that connection, then they're going to likely take more chances when they feel like the stakes are that much higher. So academic integrity, we have the Colleen and Miss Lewick are working with our students who will be coming in to work with our teachers at our December faculty meeting to discuss strategies from the student lens that can really help to promote academic integrity across the board. Equity is another issue that we are looking at in terms of assessments. So we want to make sure that all of our students have at least equal access to all of the resources that are available to all the other students. And it's something that we need to make sure that we're keeping in mind. With that being said, we do have, we're continuing our professional development with IDE Corps and Challenge Success and other organizations to help us understand and better present assessment strategies to our students. That work will continue throughout the year, no matter what happens in this pandemic. And when we get on the other side of this, I know that the work we're doing this year will reap a lot of benefits in the long term in terms of how we assess our students. All right, so I'm going to just jump into some of the data here. I'll try to explain the graphs as much as possible, but I know sometimes it's easier for people to just sit and look at the graphs and take their own time on it, but I'll do my best to try to explain what you're seeing. All right, so this first graph it shows first quarter grades for the class of 21. So our current seniors, all of their first quarter grades going back to when they were a freshman. So you can see their first 3 years. Their first 3 years here, they're blue. The blue are their freshman year grades for first quarter. You can see that they came in, there were about 18% of all of their grades were A pluses. Now this is looking at all of their grades and all of their classes for all of the students in that first quarter. And then we boiled it down to a percentage of those grades overall. So you can see the A pluses were at about 18% their freshman year. And then the A's were about 43%, B pluses around 13%, B's about 9%, C's about 3%, C pluses 3%, C's about 3%, and then a fall off for 1% to less than 1% for D's and F's. P's, we could see there, those are special circumstances. They don't normally happen. Meds are very limited as well, and incomplete, those are still stuck there, but we went back and would have had them updated. So that trend for that class of 21, you could see the orange was their sophomore year, gray was their junior year, and then the yellow is this current year. So just looking at the A plus category for this year, you can see that the average that they were facing in the first 3 years of their school was right around 18% receiving an A plus in their courses the first quarter. This year, we see that jumping up to 38%. We also see the A's coming down slightly, but when you look at the percentages of A pluses and A's, it still far outweighs the A pluses and A's from previous years. The B's are down as well because you can see that some of that has been transferred to the A plus category and the A category. And then you can see an alignment for the most part with B's, C pluses, C's, and D's. So looking at this data right now, all indicators point to kids getting many more A pluses and it not getting more of the what we would consider the grades that are not mastery. That's a good thing. We're in good shape there. Now, this is our current junior class. Again, we see this trend as well. So their freshman year in blue, sophomore year in orange, and then this current year in gray. Right? You can see where they were at almost an average of 14%. Now they popped all the way up to 35% getting A pluses. We see the A's coming down, but again, there's a balance there when you look at the A pluses and the A's, and it still even goes up higher with the A pluses and A's than it did before. Again, B plus is down a little bit from their first 2 years. B's are going to be down a bit as well because we see the extra A pluses there. And then you can see there's a similarity in the curves as we go down below mastery. So again, the trend here in our junior class shows that that first quarter, kids are getting many more A pluses. Our current sophomores, we only had last year to look at. So we again see that the numbers go up significantly in the A plus category. They balance out a little bit in the A category. So when taken together, this is more of a balance. We see that the B pluses and B's, when we add them together, they're pretty aligned with what we saw in the past. Now, interesting one is our freshmen. So when we see our freshmen, normally coming in, we would see the freshmen having a lot lower A pluses than B pluses. This year, in keeping with the trend overall, we see that the freshmen do have a lot more A pluses. Now, keep in mind that for this, the mentor grades for all students are not included. Those would be under no mark. So freshmen get a no mark in that mentor class. So those are going to skew these results slightly. Now, years to come, those students would not have any courses that do not have no marks. So this skews our grades, our numbers slightly down in the A+ and A range. Now, again, we see that same trend going in this direction. Keep in mind that there's a lot of cleanup to do in these grades as well. And our teachers have been very flexible trying to help our students get the work in. And what we are not concerned with, but what we have seen here is that our freshman students who are comfortable with their executive functioning skills, we see them by and large, not very easily, but obtaining those A+ and A's at an easier rate than they have in the past. Those students that do not have those solid executive functioning skills, we have seen an increase in the C+ and the B range, which is not normally what we would notice here with our freshmen. Again, you see this pass over here, that P, those are for certain courses that either the student was maybe in a different level, we needed to make that switch, but we normally would not see that high level of P. One interesting thing we also did was look back over the last 4 years. So this, what we're looking at, is data from the last 4 years of every freshman class. So not just comparing each class to themselves, but comparing it to other classes who are in that same grade level. So this is our current freshman class, our current 9th graders. And when we look at it, again, we see that A+ going back the last 4 years is higher than we've seen it in the past. So the blue would be our current seniors, what they got when they were freshmen. This would be, the orange would be our juniors, the gray would be our sophomores. And you can see that our freshmen are getting A+ more. But the A's are down. One thing I will say about that is that all these others, the data gets shaken out because those mentor grades are not included in their numbers. However, the numbers are included in the current freshman numbers for mentor. So that is going to skew down our A's and our B+. Again, we see a little bit lower of a number with the B+ and, the B's are a little bit higher. The C+ and C's are a little higher, which for me indicates that we have a segment of that freshman population that we, I'm sure, have already identified, but we need to support a little bit more with one-on-one executive functioning type of support. Looking at our seniors, so the first quarter grades for seniors over the last 4 years. The class of 21, they would be in blue. Last year's graduating seniors in orange, 2019 in gray, and class of 2018 in yellow. And you can see here, this year, first quarter, those A+ are much, much higher than they were previously. And this is important because these grades are going out to colleges. So again, in all of these first two areas, A+ and A's, we see that our numbers for this year are much higher. All right, so what I'd like to do now is if anybody has any questions about the data that we've just seen or any of the trends that we are seeing, please post them in the chat. But I can say, as a numbers geek, looking at the numbers, I even called in Dr. Beacon this morning, and I said, Dr. Beacon, I am going to step away from the computer screen. I want you to look at this, and I want you to tell me what you're seeing. And he said, oh, what I'm seeing is that teachers are being a lot more generous. And I said, all right, well, I won't see that. I won't say that, but it looks like what we're seeing is the willingness of our teachers to have a lot of flexibility with how they're grading students and erring on the side of better grades, higher grades, I will say.
The first question is, do grades for specials count equally towards a GPA as academic courses?
Yes, they do. And we don't weight here. So we do not weight grades. We only do it internally to figure out our cum laude society and then for valedictorian and salutatorian. We never show any students their weighted grade. So the only thing that gets sent to colleges are the grades on the transcript. Now, they may go, and each college that you send it to, they may have their own way of weighting grades that we're sending them. But in speaking with the college reps and the admission counselors, what we know that the colleges do is strip those weights that get sent to them and they apply their own. So semester grades are obviously half of a credit for what you would see normally, or when you're looking at those transcripts. We do send up, everything gets posted on there on that transcript and it gets sent up. So looking at Regents grades this year, we are looking at the weights. So ordinarily, some courses would weight Regents grade as much as 20% of the final grade. And we know that that's probably not a reality for us this year. So we are working within each department, looking at which Regents grades are going to be possibly given this year, and then determining what way would be most fair for our students when we are determining their final averages. So we also have a segment of the population, though, that would be very unhappy with us if we said that we were not going to include the Regents score in determining our final grades, because many of our students do really, really well on Regents exams. And a lot of our families see those Regents exams as a way to boost grades. So we have to be sensitive to that as well when we are looking at it. But what we ultimately want to do is we want that final grade to represent the student's overall work and mastery in that course. So I do appreciate all of the work that the departments are doing as they look at each of their courses. The January Regents have recently been canceled, so we don't know if that's indicative of what they're going to do in the spring, but it's a good sign that they're at least open to the possibility of canceling the Regents. And if they did that, our students, we would expect them to be exempt again, just as they were last year, which, I think it lessened the anxiety of a lot of our students and families thinking about, okay, well, I don't have to take the Regents, but will I have to take it in the future? When they say that they're exempting students, it really does take a lot of that pressure off. And I know I heard from parents that, especially of our juniors last year who were going to be seniors this year, who really wanted their kids to take that Regents exam. They wanted them because in a lot of their minds, they saw it as a way for their children to boost their transcript and to have higher grades on their transcript.
The next one I think is more of a comment. There was a comment that this parent is very happy that the teachers are being generous and flexible, because we all acknowledge that it's a lot for kids right now. But I think they were hoping that you could maybe talk a little bit about if kids are being assessed differently right now than they were in the past, how we can compare the data.
Yeah, like we said, we are definitely changing the way that we are assessing our students because of all of those issues related to academic integrity, equity, delivery of instruction, ability to assess our students in a timely manner. So all of those things are being taken into account. And so although we don't know, like I said in the beginning, when we were comparing that data, right, all we're doing is comparing grades. We're not comparing the learning when we look at those things. So it is a really important question. And we are looking at a lot of different metrics. And one of the things that we know would give us that alignment to the other years would be those outside standards-based assessments like the Regents. So in terms of looking at the curricular outcomes, each department are looking at what are the major areas that they need to address and looking at different ways that they can figure out whether they're hitting those. And it's different with each different content area. You know, in world language, it's very difficult for our teachers to assess when everything that's given to them on an assessment could be done on a Google Translate right next to them and then fed right back. So for them, a lot of it goes back to doing oral assessments. And so it's really interesting. They've sort of gone back into a way that they used to use in the past, they got away from and are going back to now, because for them, they feel like it's the most valid of all assessments that they're giving. So really good point to bring that up is that, like we said here, grades, we're just comparing grades. We're not comparing the learning. All right. Well, Dr. Lamia, I see you've made it. Thank you for coming.
I did, amidst everything else. I can't really see who's here, but that's another issue that I'm facing. But hi to everyone. I popped in because I just wasn't sure if people had any questions for me. I think something that is on the forefront of everyone's mind is, are we closing down schools before, after Thanksgiving, before, after December break? And the answer to that definitively is no, not unless we, A, are told we have to by the governor, or B, if we have transmission rates within our schools, which we've been fortunate not to have thus far. So if we feel that the numbers are rising to a level that it's unsafe to come to school, or if we see that we have in-school transmissions, those would be reasons for us to shut down. But other than that, we are planning to continue to stay open. There is so much value in kids coming, even if they're in a hybrid program, coming to school every day and attending school every day. We will try to keep remote only as an option if we have to. To that end, I'm having a lot of conversations with New York State, with our local Department of Health, and with many outside companies regarding testing. If the numbers in our area, not even our school, but our area, rise to the level that the governor declares a yellow zone, we have to test 20% of our population within the first 2 weeks in order to remain open. So that means we can stay open, but we have to have some sort of testing in place. The county is just overwhelmed with this testing. So we have been looking both at state testing, which is a rapid test, which we know the lack of reliability with that, but that's the requirement to stay in school. We're also looking at private testing, and that is quite expensive and would only be surveillance testing of 20%. It would not be the testing of every child. So that's basically how I'm spending my days right now, is trying to figure out how we are going to do that. But I have to say that the kids, you know, we have a few hiccups because it's life and people have certain behaviors. And so we have some hiccups and we had to shut down a bunch of different grades at different times. But we haven't seen the in-school transmissions, which would be the thing that would make me really nervous. So that means that what we're doing right. And we need to keep bringing kids back to school until we realize that that's not a safe practice for us. So that said, I know that we have at the high school level gone from 10 kids who are remote to 30 kids who are remote, as of Tim Kaltenicker's notice to me yesterday afternoon. And I have to say that if your family is in any of those situations where you think, you know what, we're having exposure to a lot of people, do the remote option. You have it. Keep your family safe. Keep your family from needing to quarantine if you're nervous for your own child. I mean, I had to send out a quarantine letter yesterday to some children at Wampus, which means essentially that these kids are quarantined to Thanksgiving. You know, of course, it's going to be at the day after Thanksgiving, they come out of quarantine. So, you know, we're all parents here. We know what that might mean. They may be sitting around that Thanksgiving table on day 13. But anything hereafter is difficult. for families, especially if you want to travel or anything like that. So I encourage you to choose that option if you want. The travel advisory, testing within 3 days and testing on the 4th day. There is something that, I mean, I don't know this company. It was recommended to me by the practitioner who's working at the master's school. But I know for my kids, it's going to be impossible when they come home to get a COVID test on the 4th day. So I've ordered 2 kits from this company. I think it's called Pixel. I could share it with anybody if you want. They send me PCR tests, anterior nasal non-invasive tests, 2 of them. I think it was like, I don't want to like talk about a specific, there are many companies that do this. I actually heard you could do it through Costco. So everybody should do what's right for them. But I ordered 2 tests because I don't want to find out on Monday that my kids can't get an appointment somewhere, or that they have to wait online with people who are COVID positive, so that's what I'm doing while they're quarantining. Or actually, while I'm quarantining and they're living freely in my home, that's what we are going to be doing. So, look for options for yourselves if you have college kids returning home or if you're traveling. And
yeah, Jen, I think one of the things that we see here more at the high school, probably than the other schools, are that we do have a large number of siblings who are returning from college.
Yeah.
So I know that in the community, a lot of people would love for us to be able to say, if you have a college sibling coming home, you are not allowed to go to school. And that's just not something that we can do, or that we would be allowed to do. So I think looking at how those families look at each of their situations, they have to understand that what they're going to do when they do have those kids home, we do want you to try to at least isolate your kids who are coming to school as much as possible if they are still within that window. So that would be something that we would definitely encourage and recommend, because there are a lot of people that would think, okay, you have this kid who's coming home and now you're at school and now you're going to possibly have an impact on my kid who's at the building. And I know that everybody is on edge about, we get calls all the time. Did you know that so-and-so went to Florida? Did you know this? So we hear about it, but yet we would allow you to do the remote option if you feel like you're going to be in a position at all where that would feel uncomfortable for you. So please use that.
Yeah. Chris, know that if you have college age kids coming home, people know what day they came home and they express that they saw that kid in town. Like, that's what actually floods a lot of my inbox. And I say the same thing all the time. I cannot be the police of college kids who are not following travel advisories. Call the Department of Health if you want to report them. But I don't want to say that about anybody in this district. So I know how hard it is, just understand your own reality. My reality is my husband is not going to stay away from my children. He is going to hug them and kiss them and be all around them and whatever. And so I'm the one that needs to isolate. I have to stay and use a different bathroom and use whatever until they get to the point they get tested. And, he gets tested. But that being said, we all have to live in our own reality. It's not going to be fun for me or nice to spend 4 days away from them when they're first home, but I can't bring COVID into school. So it's what I have to do. And that's a short sacrifice to make for a long-term goal, I think.
So there was a question about what would the options be for a student if they already used up to 2 weeks of remote learning. And that student, we don't put any limitations on how long a student can be on remote. So we've had students that have been under quarantine orders on different occasions. So those students at different times have, had to use that remote option. So there are some families that have chosen to be fully remote from the beginning of the year. And today is day 50 of our school year. So we have had students 50 days of remote instruction. So there's no time limit on it.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to a parent the other day who said that they are going to visit her parents, and she doesn't want to expose her parents to her kids. So they're going to go and they're going to quarantine in a hotel for 14 days in the area where the grandparents live. And then they're going to visit the grandparents, the whole thing for the holidays. and then do the testing when they come back home, 3 days before they leave and 4 days after they come home. I mean, it's like these are, you know, everybody has these sacrifices they have to make, and so many of us haven't seen our families. I haven't seen my father since last December, you know, and I mean, it's just, unfortunately, you have to make great sacrifices like that in order to do that right. Don't worry, he FaceTimes me and calls me and sends me pictures of like anything that he thinks it should brighten my day, which clogged my inbox. So that would be my advice to you. You know, take your own family, and guess what? If you want, I mean, I shouldn't be giving advice about what to do, but sometimes it's hard to, when you talk about these things with your friends, sometimes they're your friends, so they want to tell you what you want to be told. I'll tell you exactly what I think. So you can call me, and you know, I don't mind doing that. Sometimes you need a sounding board for, does this sound reasonable, what this plan is? I've got parents like yesterday, last night, a parent who wrote to me who said, you know, I really think that the Department of Health extends its net too wide, and that these kids should be able to take a test within 7 days and then return to school. And I can connect you with this person who could get them all tested, and then the 37 kids can return to school. And I'm like, they can't. The Department of Health will not let me, no matter what kind of test you give. So there are some times where you might have a thought that seems like a good thought and a solution, but it might not be practical given what we know from the CDC and the Department of Health right now. So happy to help. It's not easy.
And if you have any questions specific to your family, please either give me a call. You can call Jen. Kristen and Colleen are there to answer any questions as well.
Yeah.
If you have any travel issues or anything like that, please don't hesitate to call us. All right. Well, I'll go backwards a little bit and just mention our parent-teacher conferences. They are scheduled for December 3rd. Students are going to be dismissed at 11:10 a.m. on that day. And then teachers are going to offer 2 blocks of conferences. The first block that all teachers will be offering is going to be from 11:50 a.m. until 2 p.m. And then the teachers are going to have flexibility to offer them between 2-hour slots starting at 3 o'clock. So a teacher could choose a 3 to 5, 4 to 6, 5 to 7, or 6 to 8. And so parents are going to receive detailed instructions for how to sign up for these. And that's going to go out on Friday. So these conferences are going to be through Zoom this year, and they're going to be virtual. In the past, when the conferences were in person, we used to use something called ptcfast.com. And that was acceptable for us because we knew that all we needed to do was to get the parents in the building at the time, and we would need to tell the teacher what time those parents were coming in. Now we have to throw on the whole other layer of connecting it to a virtual meeting through Zoom. So we are going to actually do this through our own teacher calendars. Many of you might have used it with guidance already at the beginning of the year, where you would go in and you would select an appointment slot, and then you automatically get that link for the Zoom meeting. And that's what's going to happen in this case. So each conference is going to be 10 minutes. If you are going through that and you feel like you need to gather more information, then you can set up something later on outside of those windows. But those windows that day, because there are going to be other parents going in there, they are going to be held to 10 minutes. And parents can go on the site, which we'll put in all of the instructions, starting at 9 a.m. next Monday. Gmail account is required to schedule these appointments. So if you have a Gmail already, that's great. If you don't, you can schedule them using your child's account. And we have had no problems or issues with this, using it with guidance going back into the summer. But again, you'll be able to discuss your child's progress. Going back to this being also new, I usually like to say that if your kids are getting A+, it's probably not the best use of your time. And with only 10 minutes and a limited number of slots, to leave those open for students who may be struggling a little bit. I won't say that this year, but I also want everybody to make sure that they are aware that we want these to be really valuable. We don't want them to just be kids going in to get pats on the back. If they're getting A pluses, that's really great. It probably means that they're firing on all cylinders in the class. If you have questions about something that may be coming up in the class or that you're concerned with, please try, if you can, to leave that time to students who are struggling a little bit more. All right, so it is new, and there are different ways that teachers are going about their practice this year. So it would be appropriate to go and ask them about ways that they're delivering instruction, assessing your student, and then, you know, working on how to move forward successfully through the rest of the year. We would like you to be on video, so turning your cameras on is very appropriate, and we will be asking all of our parents to do that when they are going on these meetings. On this slide, when it comes out, it'll have the travel advisory on there. So if you're not sure about 3 days, the test on the 4th day, that's included in the link that's on that slide. All right, upcoming events and important dates. So today we have the College Athlete Recruiting Seminar with Wayne Mazzoni, and that's at 7 p.m. You can go on to the athletic department on their page, on the district page, and you can look for the information for signing up and getting the Zoom link. This Thursday, Kristen and Jenny Croak are presenting their senior internship video, and that's going to be sent out to all senior parents through a blast. And it's a video that you can watch at your leisure, but it'll go through how the internship is changing this year, some of the different ways that we're offering our seniors the ability to have an internship. Next week, we have the junior parent presentation, and that's going to be a Prezi presentation that's going out. Speaking with Christina Wilson this morning, just interesting to note, 93% of the class of 2021 has already applied to college, which is really, really early. So we have over 1,920 applications that have been sent out. Already this year, our kids have done 160 virtual college visits, where in a normal year it would be 130. So this is one area where we are definitely having more contact with these colleges in terms of the visits than we have in the past. So they're meeting with a lot more reps than we have in the past, because the reps are not traveling. There, you don't have to hustle from Scarsdale to get up here, then to go to Eastchester. So they are able to dedicate that time to Byram Hills much easier than they were in the past. So again, some of the things that we're going to see in the counseling department this year is that the individual junior college meetings, they're going to start on November 12th, and they're going to extend out through March 26th. The junior family college meetings, they're going to be an individual meeting before the family meeting occurs. So the student will have to meet with the counselor before the family meeting gets set up. And then the academic advisement, we're going to extend that out this year. Usually it's all done before March. This year we're going to extend it out because we do want to make sure that we are sort of aligning what the students are looking for with the work that they've been doing this year, and some of the way that we've been able to extend out that advisement. So that's going to go from advising grades 9 and 10 is going to go from December 1st all the way out through March 26th as well. You'll be getting all detailed information from Christina Wilson about that. Again, we have 1 hour early dismissal next Wednesday. It's hard to believe. So that's going to be at 125 after G block. So on that day, there's going to be no small group tutorials. We're going to be running our normal Hill schedule. And so after G block, our students will be able to be dismissed. Then again, we have our Thanksgiving recess. On December 1st, we will have our Night of Broadway, a stay-at-home cabaret. And I want to thank John Lopez, Pete Paulix, Jim Gulick, and Susan Parati for all of the work that they're doing with our students to make sure that they can present something. And really so dedicated to just allowing our students to perform. And it really is something to see the depths that they would go through. You know, we had quarantines that were coming and they were still looking for ways that they could, you know, pull this off, and they're going to pull it off, and it's going to be tremendous. So that's on December 1st, which is a Tuesday. And then that December 3rd, we're going to have early dismissal at 11:10, and the parent-teacher conference is starting at 11:50.
Hi, everyone. I have to go, but thanks, everyone. And Chris, Kristen, and Colleen, you're doing an amazing job. I know that I don't have to say that publicly. Everybody knows it already, but you really are. Thank you so much. And take care, everybody. Reach out if you need help.
Thank you, Jen. Wonder Woman. She is in all places at all times. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. I want to wish everybody a really nice Thanksgiving. I hope that you're able to celebrate with your families. And I really appreciate all that you are doing to promote all of our safety protocols outside of the building. I do really continue to feel that being in the high school is one of the safest places for our children to be during this time. And I really thank you for continuing those safety practices at home and to just reinforce what we're doing here. I really am very grateful of all of the help that you do give us and all of the support that we see from the community getting through this. So I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. If anything is on your mind that you did not want to ask here in this venue, feel free to email or call. And again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Take care.